بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. Welcome everybody today inshallah to our special lecture, first of many بإذن ta'ala, in which we're going to talk about issues related to women, sisters in Islam, challenges, obstacles, solutions, whatever it may be. And inshallah ta'ala, this will help all of us benefit, but also encourage people to continue to seek Islamic knowledge despite whatever situation they may be in. Today, inshallah ta'ala, our topic is going to be women and seeking knowledge, juggling between the responsibilities of life and seeking sacred knowledge. So the first topic, because this is the one that most people will find applicable in their life, but also a challenge which is frequently mentioned or brought up. How do you balance between seeking knowledge and your life? Could be something like a woman or sister who just got married, a sister who is married, many children. Could be a sister who is hoping to get married right now, seeking knowledge. All of these kinds of things, and we'll see inshallah in today's lecture. We're going to cover a wide variety of scenarios so they can be most applicable to everybody. Okay, so table of contents, what we're going to cover, inshallah, introduction. So the obligation of seeking knowledge. What's the meaning of balance? How do you know if you're doing things in a balanced way? And obviously the problem which is at hand, which is how do we actually do this, right, properly? The second section is going to be on time management, right? So Islamically is a concept of time. What is it? How do we conceive time in Islam? How do we get blessings in our time? How do we, actually get things done? We'll talk about that. And then the third one, which is the practical element, getting to the case study, Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha mu'minun. We know she's the most knowledgeable woman in the history of Islam, amongst the most knowledgeable of the scholars in the history of Islam. How did Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha get it done? How did she become a scholar despite the fact that she was married to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam at a young age? So we're going to talk about her example specifically so that we can see lessons and benefits. And lastly, we finish with some practical, actionable items that sisters can use in their daily life. So I recommend everybody, inshallah, to get your papers and pens. Focus with me, inshallah ta'ala. At the end, we'll take the questions, or if you want, anyone has any questions during the way, I don't mind, but I prefer maybe at the end, so that way we could just finish all of what we have to say, and then we could take all the questions as we go. Bismillah. So we all know the knowledge is an obligation upon every Muslim, male and female. And it's not unfamiliar to any one of us here. Anas bin Malik radiallahu ta'ala anhum, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, seeking knowledge is a duty upon every Muslim. Now this hadith, which is sahih, it gives us then the responsibility to be learning. And for sisters, that means they too have to be engaged in the seeking of Islamic knowledge. That is not obviously something unknown to us. But the problem, though, is the level of knowledge in which we need. It varies from obligatory knowledge to voluntary types of knowledge. For example, knowing the basics to raise your children, to do your tahara, your salah, all the way to things which are considered more advanced. But when it comes to knowledge, the scholars, they mention that for women, they too are obliged to learn. And that includes the aqidah, the creedal matters, as well as the shari, the fiqhi, jurisprudence issues, why actions, things to do with the actual halal and haram and the salat, zakat, the fasting, etc. And here's a quote, we cited this before, but we'll cite it again. Imam Ibn Attar al-Shafi'i, rahimahullah. Imam Ibn Attar is a student of Imam An-Nawawi, 724 Hijrah, he died. He's also the teacher of Imam al-Dhahabi. He writes that the ruling of men is the ruling of women in all actions of the heart, from creed and other than it. When it comes to aqidah, men and women both have to have the same aqidah based on the Quran and Sunnah, the understanding of the pious predecessors. And when it comes to then the obligations, her commandments and prohibitions, then they're exactly the same, except when it comes to the bodily actions like hijab for women, not for men. Menstrual rulings for women, not for men, like this, right? These differences that are there. In relation to those subsidiary issues, then some issues that she has are like that of men, and some issues are unique to her. So the reason why I'm beginning with this is that for sisters, the first step is that they need to be seeking knowledge. This is the first thing. And if they're not seeking knowledge, then they have to be getting onto that program of seeking knowledge. We need to push our sisters and give them facility for them and accommodate for them the obligation of seeking Islamic knowledge. Alhamdulillah, everyone here has come to this presentation because either they are seeking knowledge or they want to embark on that journey. So the first thing we take is that obligation is on the shoulders of every man and woman. But then, right, here's some more speech from Ibn al-Jawzi, again, confirming the same idea. A woman is a person who's legally responsible like a man. So it's obligatory upon her to seek knowledge of what is of the obligation upon her in order to form the upon certainty. So same concept. But now the second part, if knowledge is obligatory, the second part is that when a woman gets married, she has children, she has a husband, she has a home. Taking care of her husband, her children, her home, the duties that are due upon her, just like her husband has duties upon him, they both have to fulfill their duties. Now a woman has an obligation that is added to her already, right? Or the obligation she's already engaged in, which is seeking knowledge. Hence, two obligations. And this is where our presentation fits in. Abdullah ibn Umar narrates, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, every one of you is a guardian and responsible for his charges, or every one of you is a guardian responsible for his shepherd, responsible for his flock. And in the part which we want to highlight, a woman is a guardian of her husband's house and children and responsible for them. So this means that it's obligatory upon a woman when she gets married to take care of her household, to take care of her children, to make sure she fulfills the rights that are due on her towards her husband, etc. Two now obligations then or more are coming on to her. She needs to be obviously seeking the knowledge, which she's doing before, inshallah. And now she's married and suddenly she has more responsibilities. And one of the two, right, the knowledge or the duties at home I'm not going to say they may come into conflict. And so the question at the bottom there, which is what we're trying to present today, how can she manage and balance these two obligations? Okay, so the idea is balance. And if someone actually looks at the reality, the everyday reality of people, most people are either doing one of the two, right? They're either doing their Islamic knowledge or they're doing their duties at home, or some people are struggling to do both. But obviously, nobody is trying to ignore either or. No one's going to say, I'm going to take care of my family, I'm not going to learn. No, you have to learn. Something's obligation on you. And then there's some things that a sister may say, okay, I am doing, but when it comes to my household tasks, it's getting a bit too much because I don't have time to study. Or I don't have time to do, for example, do the duties at home or any of the chores because I have classes to take. So the question is balance. What does balance mean? The way we understand balance is that you have to do all that which is obligatory upon you, all that which is considered a right on you, you have to fulfill them. And this is what Islam teaches us. If you want to measure your balance, here's the hadith. Abu Juhayfa radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. We already know it, Salman and Abu Darda, when they met together, and later Abu Darda asked Rasulullah about Salman's advice, which was what the Prophet confirmed, which is what? Your Lord has a right on you. Your soul has a right on you. Your family has a right on you. So you should give the rights of those who have rights on you. This hadith is the foundation of what balance looks like. Right? Fairly, number one, Allah has a right on you, which means what? You have to worship Him. You have to learn His religion. You have to do what He told us to do. Stay from the things He prohibited us. When your body has a right on you, or nafsak, your own body, resting, making sure you're keeping healthy, making sure that you're having time for your own rest, relaxation. And then your family, and in the version of Muslim, his version of the hadith, and your children. And then the Prophet gave us the golden rule. Give everyone who has a right to do right. So if someone today wants to know if they can balance between knowledge and house, their responsibilities as a wife or as a mother, take a look at the hadith. Give everyone who has rights their due rights. So for example, if a sister prioritizes her family, just give an example, over her seeking of knowledge and worshiping Allah, then she's considered negligent. Why? Because she's not giving Allah his right. How? She's not learning about His religion. She's not acting upon the knowledge that she needs to learn first. And vice versa. If a sister says, I'm going to become a scholar, and in the process of doing that, I cannot take care of, for example, my household. Right? Let's just give that example. Then she's also falling short. Why? Because you're not allowed to, right, to miss those responsibilities under the pretext that I'm seeking knowledge. And again, this also applies to men too, right? A man can't say, I'm going to become an Islamic scholar. I can't take care of my family. I can't provide for them. No, you have to do both. So the key then is that if you want to understand the balance, all that's on your plate, you have to be balancing them all. And this would require a person then, especially for the sisters, to prioritize and organize their time. And a person can learn knowledge and run their household by Allah's permission if they were able to do that. So the good news, right, by now, before we get into the details, is that this is achievable. It was achievable by the scholars before us, the female scholars before us, and it's achievable in today's time by the scholars who are living today. And again, because we're talking about the sisters, and this is for the sisters, we're going to use the example of the sisters, right? The great scholars, female scholars who managed to do this, right? So I'm going to give you examples and names, inshallah. So we need to remember this as the principle, how we can ensure that we're actually hitting the right track. Balance would not be that someone says, I'm doing things the right way because I feel like, all right, I'm making progress. Inna li rabbika alayka haqqa. Your Lord has a right on you. So you have to make sure you're doing that. Wa li nafsika alayka haqqa. Your soul has a right on you. And this is important for women because we know women typically give preference to others over their own selves, right? They don't tend to take breaks. They don't tend to prioritize their needs. I'm going to talk about this. When the challenge faces women, they tend to prioritize the needs of others over their own. But the Prophet is telling us, your soul has the right over you. You got to sleep. You got to rest. You got to take a break. Your family has the right over you. It includes children and husband. Give everyone who has the rights their due rights. So if you understand this, inshallah, this is what we're hopefully going to explain how we can actually achieve it. Let's begin first with time management, because essentially this is going to be the key into the success. Time management is such an important concept because without it, a person can't do anything. They can't give Allah his right. They can't give the family the right. They can't give themselves the right. To begin, Islam confirms that there are 24 hours in the day and night. I know it's not really that, hidden to anybody. It's not really something that anyone needs evidence for, but, maybe fa'idah, but I might as well mention. There's a hadith Jabir ibn Abdullah radiallahu anhu mentions. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam narrated to him that Friday is 12 hours, which there is no Muslim slave who asks Allah the Exalted for something, but He will give it to him. Again, a special hour on Jum'ah, and it's the last hour after Asr. I want to take a benefit from this. 12 hours. So scholars explain, he said 12 hours, right? Friday is 12 hours, and he's talking about the daytime, which would then mean 12 hours also in the nighttime during the times when there is an equinox, the summer times or the winter times when there's like equality. There's only, I think, 2 equinoxes, if I remember correctly. But the idea is a time where it's perfect. So 12 and 12. This is what, again, Hafiz ibn Hajar mentioned about 12 and 12 plus 24 hours. And then, of course, as the summer and the winter they come, the light will be longer in the winter, it'll be shorter in the summer. But altogether, you only get 24 hours, as Imam Shawkani's tafsir mentioned. Now, nobody needed a proof for that, but I think it's also a nice benefit to know that we are confirmed there are 24 hours. So the reason why I'm mentioning this is to allow someone to be cognizant that you cannot make the excuse, no one should make the excuse that I don't have enough time compared to somebody else. Everyone has 24 hours. The people who are highly successful and those who are falling short are all in 24 hours. So the benefit then will be, if we all have 24 hours, how come some people are getting things done and some people aren't? For example, how come some people of knowledge can do so much in 24 hours and somebody else has 24 hours and they can't get anything done? So the reason for this is 2. Number one, it is barakah. That's the first one, barakah. When Allah puts blessings in your time, you can get anything done. And number 2 is time management. So inshallah ta'ala, the reason I mentioned this is because some people, they think that there's not enough time to begin with. There's not, I cannot do it. There's not enough physical time on hand, which is not true. The idea is, inshallah ta'ala, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives tawfiq, you can do it. You can actually balance this by making more of 24 hours. Let's talk about barakah to begin with. Barakah, blessings in our time, is from Allah. So someone should be mindful that they need to put barakah in their time. People before us had more barakah in their time. In fact, we could all witness, maybe 10 years ago, we had more time. We felt like we had more time. We could do more one day. And this is the first benefit about time management, that time is losing its barakah. It's from the minor sign, the judgment. Hadith Abu Huraira radiallahu anhu, the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, the hour, the last day, will not be established and the religious knowledge will be taken away by death of the religious learned men. Earthquakes will be very frequent. I mean, think about the earthquake just hit the other day in Japan. Time will pass quickly, afflictions will appear, murders will increase, and money will overflow amongst you. Again, a very beautiful hadith, very deeply beneficial hadith. But where is the benefit? Time will pass quickly. Now, scholars, they differ on interpretation of this into two meanings. The most correct meaning is that it's meant figuratively. The 24 hours will not disappear, but will disappear the barakah, the value of that time. Hafid ibn Hajar, rahimahullah, that 852 Hijri, he says, the fact of the matter is that what it means is that barakah will disappear from everything, even from time. That is one of the signs that the hour is at hand. So right now, we can all sense this. In fact, many of us would probably agree that this is the problem. This is exactly the problem, that we're trying to do all the work, but we can't do it, right? And we're not able to achieve what we're trying to achieve. We can't achieve it. Why? Because there's no barakah. Like even right now, today, almost the whole day is done. Ibn Abi Jamrah, rahimahullah, Spanish scholar, that's 675 Hijri, he writes, this is known to the religious scholars and also those who are smart and involved in the worldly affairs, for they find that none of them can do as much work as they used to do before. And they complain about that and do not know the reason for it. Now he suggests perhaps that is because of the weakness of faith and emergence of things that go against Islam in many ways. Again, this is his interpretation, that it has to do with our sinning and it has to do with the fact that we're not so strong in faith. Now, someone may say, what are the reasons for the lack of time? Imam al-Khattabi, rahimahullah, just a side benefit, Alamat al-Khattabi, he writes, rahimahullah, that perhaps the reason for the lack of time is because life is easy. Allahu Akbar. You know, he said this, he died 388 Hijri, Abu Sulaymaan al-Khattabi. He suggested because when life gets easy, time goes faster. You don't really, have too much difficulty, so suddenly time disappears. It could also be indicating, wallahu alam, that because life gets easy, you get more distracted. And I believe this is what I'm trying to really get to. Whatever the reason time is losing barakah, we all can feel it. Mothers and wives specifically, because they have too much things to do in one day. And then someone will come along and say, are you also studying? I think studying, I can barely do what I'm supposed to be doing. And a reason why we need to be careful about this, that Al-Khattabi's suggestion that because life is easy is a suggestion. Ibn Hajar didn't agree with him. Ibn Hajar says that it's not necessarily because of easy life, because Ibn Hajar lived in the 9th century. He says life was easy, not that easy nowadays, and people still are losing time. It has to do with the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he made a sign day judgment. That seems to be the best way to explain it. So the first thing we need to be doing for time management, put barakah in your time. How do you do that? There's an article here I put on my blog. Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen, rahimahullah, tells us how we can, which is the dhikrullah. Try it. You'll see yourself. Remember Allah. Throughout the day, you get things done faster. And the Shaykh uses proof. He has proof for the Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen for this benefit in the Quran in chapter number 18. And the reason someone may say, why are we starting from here? So we need to start from here so we can get to where we need to go. We need to get to a success. So we have to know what's going on. Our time is disappearing. We have cell phones now, social media, YouTube. Then we have family duties. Then you have knowledge. You got to study. So put barakah in your time. Even though time is moving quickly, you can put barakah in it by Allah allowing you to do more in your time. And Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen used the proof, chapter 18, Surah Kahf, verse number 28. When Allah says, وَلَا تُطِعْ مَنْ أَغْفَلْنَا قَلْبَهُ عَنْ ذِكْرِنَا وَاتَّبَعَ هَوَاهُ وَكَانَ أَمْرُهُ فُرُطًا. And do not obey, Allah says. It's now Allah's talking about the people who are misguided. And do not obey him whose heart we have made heedless of our remembrance, one who follows his own lusts and whose affairs have been lost. What does that mean? Because he doesn't remember Allah, because he doesn't obey Allah, his affairs are furuta, all over the place. So Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen derived from there that if someone remembers Allah, Allah will make your affairs rectified, and put barakah in your time to get things done and to make sure it's all organized. Allahu Akbar. And Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen, rahimahullah, it's a great imam, great faqih. That's a great benefit. So inshallah, if you want more, you can go on to my blog to read that post. So first thing we need to highlight for the sisters here, be mindful of our time. We're losing the barakah in the time. So once you know that one of the reasons why we're not able to do so much is that we lost the barakah. Put barakah in your time, and then let's talk about time management. That's the next step. Actually managing what time you do have. Before getting there is something that right? Ibn Jawzi wrote in his kitab Left of the Kabit fi Nasihat al-Walad, and it's a beautiful quote. I like to quote it a lot, right? And myself, when I first read it, I found it very useful. He said, "Verily, the Salaf used to benefit from every second and every moment." And this is the way of the Salaf. And I like this quote because it also shows us the eagerness of the earlier generations to maximize the use of their time. So for us, we have to be mindful of this. If you want to be like the Salaf, be more mindful of your time. Doesn't mean that every minute you have to be doing something. You can take breaks, but just try to be mindful and intentional about what you're doing. Okay. Barakah, and then next, time management, organizing the time. So once you start to remember Allah more, inshallah, your time will become more blessed. And that's another secret for the Muslim has, the non-Muslim doesn't have. The Muslim has Allah to help them. The non-Muslim, unfortunately, they don't remember Allah. And that's why they're the ones who complain most about their lives being all over the place. Let's talk about the management of time now. How do you actually schedule all your time? Well, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam told his Sahaba how to do that because they complained about this as well. Hamdullah al-Usaydi, right? Al-Usaydi, right? Usaydi, yeah, that's what I said. He actually had this kind of problem. He felt this. When he sat with the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he remembered Jannah and Jahannam. When he went home with his wife and kids, he just playing and busy with them. He forgot. He forgot Allah. He felt distracted. Again, this is a concern that every believer has, that we need to make sure that what we're doing at home and we're doing it outside is the same. So Hamdallah, anhu, he went to the Prophet to ask him about this. He said, "Oh Hamdallah," he complained to the Prophet, "I feel like I'm being a munafiq." Prophet Muhammad said, "Oh Hamdallah, time should be devoted to worldly affairs, and time should be devoted to prayer and not meditation." It's not a correct translation. We should, this is Sunan.com. We should erase that. I say prayer and worship. And Prophet Muhammad said it 3 times. So what did Prophet tell Hamdallah? He told him, "Sa'atan wa sa'a, ya Hamdallah, sa'atan wa sa'a." What does that mean? Time for this and time for that. Time for praying, time for home, time for resting, time for family. So the word sa'a wa sa'a, it's not saying time for disobedience. No, time for disobedience, time for that obedience. So the person, when he looks at this hadith, the hadith I cited earlier, Abu Juhayfa's hadith, وَإِنَّ رَبِّكَ عَلَيْكَ حَقًّا, that's one of the hadiths for time management. And the second one is this hadith, سَاعَةٌ وَسَاعَةٌ. You can't study the whole day. You need to take breaks. And you can't be busy at home all day, cooking, cleaning, right? Doing the daily tasks, right, all day. You have to have balance. So if the hadith of Abu Juhayfa was interesting, right, about setting the establishment, the balance, you could also not measure it. Is your timetable balanced, right? Do you actually have time scheduled for things? Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen commented in the hadith of Sharh Riyadh al-Salihin saying, an hour for your Lord, an hour for your family and children, an hour for himself, so that person can give his soul his relaxation. Again, when the nafsaka alayka haqqa, you gotta take a break. So that he gives those with their rights their rights. This is the justice of Islamic legislation, its perfection. Verily, Allah has a right, so He gives him exalted his right. Likewise, soul has a right, so He gives it its right. And the people have rights and are given their rights. So visitor and guests have rights; they're given their rights. Until a person establishes all the rights which are due on them in comfort and worships Allah in comfort. So what's beautiful about this hadith is that it doesn't literally mean 1 hour, 1 hour, 1 hour, because you pray 5 times a day, for example. Maybe cooking will take less than that. Maybe, cleaning might take less, maybe more than that. Dealing with children might take more than that. It's the idea of balancing by having different things in your daily routine. So a person has to have a schedule. Now, somebody may say, well, with the children, it's so hard to make a schedule. Well, let's be honest. The children, as they get older, you have to make a routine. You can't have a child all over the place without a schedule anyways. You're going to develop a schedule for them, a routine, and that routine is going to be your routine as well for seeking knowledge, because when they're busy, you're free. And when they're preoccupied, you also can do something. But if you live your life without schedule, without balance, even if it's a rough, schedule, it doesn't have to be like, as we know, there's more flexible models. It doesn't have to be like everything etched in stone. If you don't have a rough idea of what you're doing today, you're not going to get things done. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, why he told Hamdala this? Because Hamdala felt guilty about going home and spending time with his family and kids. He felt that was hypocrisy. And how do we know that? The riwayah of Ibn Majah. Sunan Ibn Majah mentions the same hadith as Muslim, but in that riwayah, that version of the hadith, Hamdala, he said that when he went home, he spent time when he's playing with his kids and he's talking to his wife, and that he felt guilty because in the halaqah, he's focusing. He's thinking about Jannah, Jahannam. Then here he's talking about dunya. So we know Islam says balance. وَلَا تَنْسَى نَصِيبَكَ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا. Don't forget your share of the dunya. But what does the deen tell us? The share of your dunya is supposed to be there for you to help you, but it's not your goal in life. Your goal in life is to get to Allah. So you do both. Now, with that being said, there is actually more to building schedules than that. Ibn Qayyim, he writes, rahimahullah, 751 Hijri, he died, in his Kitab Madarij Salikin, volume 2, page 20, structuring time. Ibn Qayyim has a section, he calls it Imaratul Waqt, structuring or organizing time. He says structuring time is by a person busying himself in all his hours of day and night in what draws him near to Allah or assists upon that from food, drink, marriage, sleep, recreation. Look at this comprehensive definition. Anything and everything that gets you closer to Allah, either ibadah or the dunya things, from food, drink, marriage, sleep, recreation, all of that's considered structuring time. So when he does this with a strong intention in accordance to what pleases Allah and avoids what leads to his wrath, then it is considered structuring time. So this quote is beautiful because Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah is showing us there are things which are objectives and things which are means to objective. Our goal is to worship Allah, to make him happy with us and to please Allah. And that's done primarily through ibadah. And one of the ibadat is talab al-ilm. Talab al-ilm is an ibadah, seeking knowledge. But then the things you have to do in order to seek knowledge, like organizing yourself and taking care of your family and preparing, all of that, if you have the right intention, the wasail, the means, will get you the reward and will also help you get to the ghayat, the objectives. Both of them are rewarding. So if you spend time taking care of your family in order then to have free time to study, all that is ibadah. All that's considered structuring your time. But if someone told you, no, I just gotta worship Allah, study, pray, fast, I don't care about the house, I don't care about my kids, if someone thinks this way, it's un-Islamic. Why? Because those tasks are for acts of worship as well, even though they're not acts of worship per se in and of themselves, but they're means to it. So therefore they take the reward. So here we can learn if your schedule is designed like this, where you take care of all your duties, things that you need to do, things you want to do, things you have to do, all of that make your intention for Allah's sake. You get hasanat for all of it. You see, this is the thing about Islam that's unique to the other religions. We can make our whole life ibadah. قُلْ إِنَّ صَلَاتِي وَنُسُكِي وَمَحْيَايَ وَمَمَاتِي لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. Say, verily Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, say, my slaughter, my prayer, my whole life, my death are all for Allah, Lord of the worlds. How do you make your life for Allah? Make sure everything you do, the worldly things and the religious things, for Allah's sake. So you need to have a schedule. You need to have a routine every single day. Especially the sister who's trying to seek Islamic knowledge, it's a must to have a schedule. And this schedule will be a mix of what? Daily classes, your daily chores and responsibilities, your personal matters, and of course your ibadat. So everyone's schedule is going to look different. Now, Shaykh al-Muqbil rahimahullah, we're going to get down more specific. Shaykh al-Muqbil bin Hadi al-Wadi'i rahimahullah ta'ala, the great Imam of Yemen, we're going to quote for him 2 fatwas in which sisters asked him about how to seek knowledge when you have children. They asked him about this, rahimahullah, and he gave advice. But before getting to his fatwa, we need to be mindful who Shaykh Muqbil is. He's not only the Imam of Yemen who's teaching all these students in his own markaz, he also taught his daughters and his wives. His wife and his daughters are become people of knowledge. Right? So Abdullah, his wife, his daughter, is a alima, and also his wife was a student of knowledge. So he raised people in his house to be knowledgeable, as well as the people who he's teaching inside the masjid, other students. So his advice is very useful because he has that kind of practical experience. And his daughter has a lot of great advice as well. In fact, she has a whole series, which I recommend for those one who are interested. There's on her Telegram channel, she has a series she did before where she talks about the memoirs with her father. Right? She had memoirs with her father, where she would, talk about when she was growing up, how the Sheikh raised her. and how he used to be very strict about their time, even giving them advice when you're cooking the food, make it light, make it light. Don't cook a lot of things so you spend more time learning. SubhanAllah, it's so amazing because she's another practical example in our time, a person of knowledge, who's a female who grew up with the knowledge, but how did she do it? So again, if you go on the Telegram channel, you can see some of those great like little benefits, like cards. She made these little cards. All right, it's very beneficial. Okay, Shaykh Muqbil rahimahullah has two fatwas here. Let's take a look at them. And what did he say? So first one, he was asked, is it possible for you, O our Shaykh, may Allah reward you, to recommend for us a program of study and the stages of learning which a sister can apply in her home until she reaches a high level of knowledge? All right, so this is one of the questions she was asked. So he says, that which I advise with is gradual progression in knowledge and reading easy books. For verily, it will help you understand her in understanding many books. Examples that Riyal Salihin, Fath al-Majid, Sharh Kitab al-Tawheed, Bulugh al-Maram, Mabhath al-Hajar. And this is if she can understand them. If she cannot understand this, then there are smaller books, like there's a smaller book by our noble brother, Sheikh Muhammad bin Abdul Wahab al-Yamani al-Wasabi, called Al-Qawl al-Mufid fi Adil al-Tawheed. Just a footnote, this book is a well-known book, but the author, he passed away quite recently, rahimahullah, but even after the Sheikh's life, he fell into some fitna. So he kind of situation was not as good as he was when the Sheikh was alive. That's why the Sheikh's recommending him and his book. This is just for those who are unaware of the Sheikh. But this book is still a well-known book. Now the Sheikh says it's a very easy book. It's possible she can read, she reads As-Sunnah of Ibn Asim, As-Sunnah of Muhammad bin Nasr al-Marwazi, As-Sunnah of Abdullah bin Ahmed bin Hanbal. What is important is she organizes her time and not increase in lessons which she takes, or perhaps she will not digest them. Just as I advise you to connect with the virtuous scholars if things are difficult for you. Likewise, writing benefits is easy for, if it is easy for a woman or husband to come to sense of knowledge, the Yemen, then advise us. So Sheikh's advice in general, this fatwa is revolving around right curriculum, pick the easy books, pick the books which are beneficial, make sure you're organizing your time, make sure you have a teacher and people who can benefit. Now, some may say the Sheikh is advising these kind of books. Are these beginner books? Well, yes and no. Well, yes, they are beginner books in some ways. But for many of us, it might not be advisable to begin with Fath al-Majid when you could begin with something like Thalath al-Usul or Qawl al-Mufid of Ibn Uthaymeen and others. So I wouldn't, for example, be taken back with the Sheikh's advice, because the books he's mentioning, once upon a time, these people used to begin like this. Today we have many other curriculums. So don't worry about the curriculum right now. Worry about what he's trying to say about how to do it. Go from the easy to the more advanced, have a time to learn, have a teacher, have a place to learn. The second fatwa is even more interesting because it gives more practical advice. And I highlighted it here. This question, the question says, what does a Salafi sister give preference or precedence to when she's taking knowledge? And what is the best way for her to gain knowledge, especially if she has children? That's the key, because this is what we're trying to highlight today's presentation. He said, advise her to organize her time and place a time for raising the children, and advise her husband to help her. All right, so the first benefit. Sisters are not alone. They didn't have children by themselves. They have husbands. The husbands got to help. Ta'awun al-birr wa-taqwa. The husbands have to help. Then he says, if they have children aged 4 to 5 years of age, they should go out with him, the husband, to seek knowledge. So let's say that they have older kids, or kids now is school age almost, right about school age. You can go to the masjid with his father. He's old enough to sit down, and he can just. So then at least she has less, responsibility at home during that period. And this is something which is advisable. You find, for example, many of the tulab, right? They take their kids to the madrasa or to the halaqa, and they sit down with their paper and pen, and the kids are drawing on their books, and the father is studying with the sheikh in his books. That's just practical advice. He says necessary that he helps his wife, and what he fears, and he fears Allah. Rather, it's obligatory that he be happy, he finds good direction in the household. He does not leave 12 children at home, right? This one yelling, this one defecating, this one asking for food. She'll be a miskeen in her situation. No, I advise that he takes them with him. So that's advice for the sheikh. Now look, the sheikh says, I advise a woman that she makes time to study after Asr. This is his advice. After Asr, have a good lesson. If she's able to organize her time, like after Fajr, for memorize the Quran, and after Asr to 10 lessons, a female teacher found, or she can even teach her fellow sisters. So the Shaykh is telling us here, timetable. After Fajr, you could do something. The Asr, you could do something. Why Fajr and Asr? Because the time period after Fajr and Asr tend to be longer. Can be longer depending on what where you're living and what season. but also the responsibilities might be right, less after Fajr. Maybe the children are sleeping, right? Husband is sleeping, nothing to be done at that time. Perfect. And we know the barakah of starting after Fajr. After Asr could be advisable for some people. Could be after Isha when the children are put to bed, or it could be even after that. But everybody has their own priority time. Then the Sheikh gives advice about books to teach, Al-Wasatiyya, Al-Qawl al-Mufid, Al-Sheikh al-Sabi, Umdul Ahkam, etc. Then I like this last part here. The Sheikh says, the religion is easy. And Allah says, وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ. It makes me the Quran easy to remember, then is there anyone who remember it? And the Sheikh's advice here is that ultimately, if somebody has a schedule, her husband's helping her, they're working in tandem, then ultimately she'll be able to gain the knowledge she's achieving. Allah, He didn't make Islamic knowledge so difficult that no one can gain it except for the people who sacrificed the whole life. Those who sacrificed the whole life and everything, those people are going to become maybe the greatest of scholars or the greatest of examples if Allah gives them tawfiq. But for us who are trying to get to the basics and beyond, it's not going to take, well, some people may think it takes everything out of you. No, Allah, He didn't make knowledge that difficult. And yes, there are some people who may make it appear that way, but it's not the case. But the goal is to go as much as you can, because knowledge is not something you take bare minimum. You go for as much as you can. Whoever takes it, taking a great share. Take as much as you can. So the advice of the Sheikh is timetable. So the question every sister should ask themselves, what's my timetable look like? When do I do Quran? When do I do Arabic? When do I do Aqidah? When do I do fiqh? Whatever subject you're studying. What time is it? Or are we the kind of people who study whenever we have a time? If this is how we're going to learn, then we're not going to learn, right? So it's just like saying right now, I'm going to cook whenever there's time. I'm going to clean the house whenever there's time. Then most likely you're not going to do it. You have to plan it. And being intentional about it is that also being mindful that you don't have to have a set schedule. If it fluctuates, today we have an appointment, something came up, no problem. You compensate. You couldn't do now, you do later. But what's important is the idea of having the schedule. And I think it's important for all of us to have that schedule. And it's very important to kind of start with that right now, just thinking about in your head about, okay, what's my schedule look like right now? Okay. There are some obviously issues now that we have to quickly address that affect sisters and their ability maybe to learn. And this is the issues that are unique to that. And I'm mentioning it because we have to be realistic, right? We have to be more realistic. We can't be talking, in generalities. We got to speak in particulars. Some challenges are unique to sisters that men don't face. And because it can be a unique challenge that she has to overcome and find a way around, and everything can be done. Allah ala kulli shay'in qadir. One of the challenges sisters face uniquely, maybe that, of course, they're the ones who are doing more of the domestic work and duties at home, right? The home stuff when they get married. And even before they're married, they might be doing a lot of that. So that means naturally they might have less time. The men might be going out and about, going to the classes, going to work. Yes, the men have work to do, but sometimes you may notice that, they may be going to work, but they have a little more free time when they finish work. They don't have to do as much at home. So sisters have a lot of domestic work. That could also be one of the challenges, how to manage literally a long list of tasks. Number two is the rights of the husband. Right? We spoke about that wife and husband both have rights on each other. Number three, pain and mood swings due to menstruation. This is a reality that, they has to be mindful. Women's moods, they go up and down as their hormones fluctuate during the monthly cycle. That means sometimes you don't feel like doing certain things or going out or learning or listening to lectures. It's a reality, right? So sisters always say they know themselves best. Everyone knows themselves best. You have to think about these strategies, how to get around it. And we'll talk quickly about some examples. Pregnancy, probably one of the biggest challenges, because when a woman gets pregnant, what happens? Okay, her body changes, her memory changes, her timetable changes, and throughout the 9 months, right, period, every day is a new day. So this is a big challenge, and we're going to talk about an example in a second. Nursing and raising the children, so after birth, and then the tendency, like I already said, women to prioritize others over themselves. So women, for example, working, trying to help everybody, and they don't give themselves any time. Sometimes they say they feel guilty or take some time out to learn and study. Nope, you're not guilty for doing that. That's your wajib you're doing. So how can we overcome all these challenges? Well, correct intention, recognizing the challenge in front of you, and also actually taking actionable plans. And remember, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not put anything in front of us we can't overcome. So, for example, these challenges are unique to women. Men also have their challenges, but everybody who has a challenge has a way out of it. So, before mentioning some examples, the men also have challenges. For example, some men work long hours, then they have to come home and they have wife and children or other tasks. Is it impossible for them to learn? No, it's possible. Umar anhu and his neighbor used to take turns and going to Prophet Muhammad to study. And in Bukhari, he mentioned a chapter about that, about taking turns, alternating schedule for learning. When there's a will, there's a way. So no Sahabi like Umar who has many kids, he has more than one wife, he has business. It did not deter him from becoming a scholar. So what did he do? He was creative in finding solutions. Today, this is what we need. Somebody may look at their lifestyle and say, "Well, forget it. Like for me to become knowledgeable about the deen, it's going to require like an effort that I can't do." But that's because we're aiming too low. We need to start having higher ambitions by remembering who's Allah. Allah can do all things. Allah's gifts are not restricted. Always tell yourself, I can do it. Allah can provide. Allah, He can help. And Allah says in the Quran, وَمَا كَانَ عَطَاءُ رَبِّكَ مَحْظُورًا. Verily, your gifts of your Lord are not restricted. Which means somebody could have everything piled on them and they're still succeeding. Two examples now. We need some inspiration to do asmas. I mentioned this before in one of our classes, but I gotta mention again the two role models for women, the two asmas who were pregnant, and both of them achieved great feats when despite being pregnant. This is what sisters should tap into when they're feeling down. The great role models. Asma bint Abi Bakr, anha, Abu Bakr's daughter. And you have to, all of us should read the biography of Asma if you're able to access it, because her life was not easy to say the least. Right? She had a lot of challenges. But her nickname, that not Nitaqain, why did she get this nickname? It means the owner of two belts. Many of us we know that she made they got this nickname because she narrated to herself that when the Prophet Muhammad and Abu Bakr, her father, were making hijrah, she had to tie for them, bring for them the food, right? When they first set out. So she took her belt, or waist belt, literally broke it in two. And in one, she tied the food for Prophet Muhammad and her father Abu Bakr Siddiq. And the other one, she kept for herself to tie with it. What does she mean when she says that is the belt which no woman can dispense with? The shurrah, the commentators, the hadith say that when a woman does housework, she's wearing a dress. So in order to keep her dress a little bit higher so she can work more freely, I'm sure many of our mothers just they tie, right? She used a belt to tie her dress. This is what Asma was talking about. Now, what's important about this? She made herself hijrah. After all of that, she made hijrah herself pregnant, walking how much? How far is she traveling? 339.57 kilometers or kilometers. And here's the Prophet's journey from Mecca to Medina, pregnant. And then she obviously gave birth to Abdul Zubair, the first child to be born in Medina, which the Sahaba celebrated greatly. Now, her story is unique because obviously later in her life, because you have to put in context, why did she narrate the story? Hajjaj ibn Yusuf, subhanAllah, Hajjaj ibn Yusuf, the zalim, the oppressive tyrant ruler, he was making fun of Abdullah ibn Zubair, her son, who him and Hajjaj had a problem on the political problems. And he was making fun of Abdullah by saying that you are the son of that nitaqain. You're the son of the woman with two belts. Imagine. So one day Abdullah came home to tell his mother Asma what they're saying about him. He said, "Do you know why I have that name?" And she told him the story. Allahu Akbar. It's unbelievable. Sometimes we think about how could someone at that time, obviously Hajjaj was wrong for what he was doing, but how could you criticize someone who, at this level, in this stage? So this shows us what she's pregnant and she made hijrah. Didn't deter her because when the ambitions are high, you can do anything. Another example, Asma bint Umays. And I talked about this one before. This one's even more. This is like a beautiful benefit. She made Hajj with the Prophet Muhammad and her husband Abu Bakr Siddiq. So Asma is the mother of the wife of Abu Bakr Siddiq. She made Hajj with the Prophet during the last stages of her pregnancy. And she gave birth to Dhul Hulayfa. And here's the picture. This is what you call Majlis Shajara, Dhul Hulayfa, where you make your ihram, the miqat of Medina. Whoever went there knows it. Look at the hadith in Sunan Ibn Ma. They went out for Hajj with the Prophet Muhammad on the farewell pilgrimage. Abu Bakr narrated himself. And when they reached Dhul Hulayfa, which is literally the beginning of the journey, that's where you make the miqat. That's where you put on your ihram. Asma gave birth to Muhammad bin Abi Bakr. Right, so Abu Bakr came to Prophet Muhammad and told him, and the Messenger told him to tell her to perform ghusl, then to begin the talbiyah for Hajj and do everything that people do, except that she should not circumambulate and make tawaf around the house. Benefit. She's going out at a later stage, knowing that she might not be making it. What encouraged her? Sheikh Sulaymaan Ruhaili, he mentioned, Hafidullah Ta'ala, that the scholars say this because she wanted to learn from the Messenger, because Prophet, what did he say? Khudu anni manasikakum. Take from me the Hajj rites. She wanted to be from those. She wanted to witness Hajj al-Wada'. She wanted to be there despite this. Allahu Akbar. These kind of stories, these are not fiction. Right? These are not fiction. This is the reality. These are our salaf. These are our salaf. So we look at this example. Some of the scholars, as Sheikh Sulaymaan Ruhaili talks about, look in today's time, how we as human beings, we set ourselves to see a low ceiling, right? When we tell ourselves, oh, I'm tired, I'm busy. I mean, only someone, right? The sisters will know best, right? The end stages of their pregnancy, how difficult to do anything. But the love for knowledge and to be accompanying Prophet Muhammad kept her, pushed her to go up forward. So why I mentioned these two stories? Sisters have unique challenges, but they also have role models that they can tap into and look into the examples whenever they feel like they need it. Okay. With all that being said, right, this is a beautiful quote as well. Maybe probably very timely, right, or connected. Or Ibn Qayyim said, "Al-ilm wal-amalu tawamani ummuhuma ulu al-himmah." The knowledge and action are two twins, and their mother is high ambition. Allahu Akbar. High ambition can give birth to anything. And this is why we should always try to make sure that our intentions are high, but also our reliance on Allah is stronger. Page 747. So I just wanted to mention that quote because I feel like it's a great summary of the two stories I mentioned. All right, let's continue towards the main part of today's lesson. Okay, examples. We need some practical points. So first of all, the female scholars in the past in Islam are in three categories. Okay, and I have to say this from the get-go because if you don't know this, you should know it now. Some scholars in the past, female scholars, never got married. There's some scholars in the past, female scholars, who got married and had no children. And there are some who were married and had children. So I give an example of three of them, right? One of each category. And our focus primarily today is about Aisha radiallahu anha because she's the most knowledgeable of all of them. And she'll probably be in the middle, married without children. Now, before continuing, why am I mentioning this? Some people, when they look at the history of Islam, they say that, well, look, a lot of the female scholars never got married. They prefer knowledge over marriage, which is true. I mean, even Maryam alayhi salam, right? We know she didn't get married. I mean, after giving birth to Isa, did she get married? Not. Some historians have discussed it, but we know that generally she's nicknamed the one who didn't get married. So the scholars, some of them, they mentioned this, that, okay, there are men who didn't get married, but that doesn't mean then that that's the only way women can become scholars. Okay, I'm saying that because there are many men who didn't get married in Islamic history as well, who became scholars, and many of them who got married and were also scholars. So women and men are equal in this one. Let's give one example. The Muhadditha, Karima bint Ahmed al-Marwaziyya, died 460 Hijri. She narrated Sahih Bukhari many times. So she's a narrator of Bukhari. Who did she teach? Her students, Al-Khatib Baghdadi, one of the greatest muhaddithun in the history of Islam. So they mentioned about her, Karima never got married. She used to narrate the Bukhari, imagine, right? But that doesn't mean that again, if you want to become a scholar or something, okay, that's all you got to do. No, it's just something to be mindful of. Number two, the scholars we know who are married but didn't have children, the head of them being Abdullah, al-Mu'minun, Aisha bint Abi Bakr radhiyallahu anha. Okay, so we're going to use her example. That's why it's in green color, because Aisha, number one, is the most knowledgeable, and number two, it's probably the middle between the three categories. And lastly, those who were scholars and who had children. And again, this is also good news. Fatima, Aisha bint Ibrahim bin Siddiq, 740 Hijri. Who is she? She is the wife of Al-Hafid Jamaluddin al-Mizzi. So who's Mizzi? Mizzi is the teacher of Ibn Kathir, the contemporary of Shaykh Islam ibn Taymiyyah. Okay, in that period, there are many imams. So Ibn Kathir's teacher, right, is Hafid Jamaluddin al-Mizzi. Mizzi is a great imam. He has a book, Kitab Tahdhib al-Kamal, when it comes to hadith sciences and narrators. His wife is Fatima Aisha bint Ibrahim. He writes Ibn Kathir, there was none like her from amongst the women of her time in worship, recitation, reading the noble Quran, eloquence, correct enunciation, which many men were unable to perform. Many women have memorized the Quran under her hands, and many women recited upon her. They benefit from her piety, religiosity, asceticism from the world life, and belittling it. Due to her long life, she reached 80 years of age. She spent it in the obedience of Allah and its recitation. Allahu Akbar. Benefit, half a Mizzi That's the husband. He's a alim. She's a scholar of Quran. She gives birth to a daughter, Zainab, who's Ibn Kathir's wife. And well, guess what? She also hafid the Quran. She learned from her mother. So you could see there are, stories of great benefit like this. The reason why we need to know this is that no one can tell themselves, "Oh, my situation is not conducive to scholarly achievements." No, that's not correct. No one should say that. Allah's bounty is unlimited. Now, once we understand this, our case study is going to be about Aisha, how did Aisha become so knowledgeable despite being married? And of course, she's married to Rasulullah. I'm sure she's busy, as she is, right? So I'm going to try to make the case that Aisha was busy with Rasulullah. But despite that, she's a scholar. She became a scholar because of certain qualities that she had. What are those qualities? How can we get them? That's what I'm going to try to derive from her seerah, inshallah. All right. But maybe before we continue, anyone have any questions? I think I've been going on for a bit here. Anyone have anything they want to mention, or we're going to hold it to the end? It's already 1 hour, so maybe I should finish this as quickly as possible so we can take the questions then, because I don't want to take more time than there is. Okay, the case study. So stage number 3, Aisha radiallahu anha. Okay, so let's talk about Aisha and her life. First thing we want to establish from the get-go is that Aisha, al-Mu'minun, radiallahu anha, was married, and she was busy fulfilling the rights of Rasulullah. So Aisha was not free just to seek knowledge. She had responsibilities. And the reason why I'm saying that, because we don't really talk about that when we talk about her biography. We tend to focus on all the things she did with knowledge. But here's a hadith from Muslim. Abu Salama narrates, Bukhari Muslim, I heard Aisha radiallahu anha say, I had to complete some of the fast of Ramadan, but I could not do it but during the month of Sha'ban, due to my duties to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The key word, my duties. So Aisha, she's missing some fasts in Ramadan. But because of this, she could not make up those fasts up until Sha'ban, 1 month before Ramadan, the next Ramadan coming in. Why? Because she says she was busy with the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Busy in what ways? Scholars of a hadith, they mention multiple reasons, possibilities. One is that she was always available for Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam for any physical or intimate needs. Some say she was busy for free for Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam if he needed her for anything else, or out of adab for Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So many interpretations were given. The bottom line is that she was busy, and because she was busy, that means that she has things to do. I mean, she is a wife. She's going to cook. She's going to clean. She's going to do these other duties. And yes, Aisha did do those duties. In one riwayah, one hadith, the Musnad of Abu Ya'la, it's an authentic hadith. I think Sheikh Al-Bani and Sheikh Al-Muqr both authenticated. One day, Aisha radiallahu anha came into the house of Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam with some food that she made. And then that time is the hadith where Sauda was there. And then they wanted to eat together. Then they started to have some jokes and playing around with the food, etc. That hadith about talking about joking. The benefit of the beginning of hadith, she says she cooked it for the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So she used to do these duties. But now I want to point to this part. Sometimes, because she's married, she's busy with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which would preoccupy her naturally from what? From knowledge. And someone will be like, how is that possible? Aisha didn't have any children. But no, since she's a wife, she doesn't have the freedom of time like those who didn't have any family. Example, Abu Huraira radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Between Abu Huraira and Aisha, who narrated more hadith? Abu Huraira. Why? Because Abu Huraira spent all his energy on hadith memorization. And now I'm going to mention a story where Aisha one day came to Abu Huraira and asked him, how do you know all these hadith more than we do? And Abu Huraira's response to Aisha, this is going to be highlighting the proof. Aisha radiallahu anha once called for Abu Huraira radiallahu anhu, and she said, Abu Huraira, what are these ahadith which you convey from Prophet Muhammad? Didn't you hear what we heard? And didn't you see what we saw? So Abu Huraira said, oh my mother, verily the mirror, the kuhl container, and affection towards the Messenger preoccupied you. As for me, then nothing preoccupied me. Allahu Akbar. This response of Abu Huraira is very important. What is he talking about? Mirror, kuhl, and affection. Means beautification. She's busy beautifying herself for her husband. So sometimes she couldn't hear some hadith, or she was missing from something that Abu Huraira didn't miss. and this narration is authentic. Hakim authenticated, وافقه الذهبي وجيده Ibn Hajar, and also Shu'aib al-Arnaud in his Sir Alam al-Bala, he's checking, he says, رجال وثقات. Why am I mentioning this? Aisha is a wife. A wife is busy taking care of the duties of her husband. A husband, he has to take care of the responsibility of his wife. So the reason why I'm saying this is because we don't want to imagine Aisha was just sitting there with her books all day and night and memorizing and learning and studying with no other duties. This is not true. And so for all of us who are married and those who have children too, we need to move away from that kind of imagination to reality. Why is that? She's busy like you are, but she was able to learn like you can. Okay, it's very important. If we don't tell people these kind of realistic things, we're gonna create then what, a kind of romanticization of the past, which is something which is beyond measure. Look at this point here. Aisha was Abu Huraira, and when Abu Huraira said this to her, the riwayah of Ibn Hajar, of Dhahabi says, when he said that to her in reply, she said, لَعَلَّهُ, perhaps. And the reason I'm saying that, Abu Huraira narrated 2 times more hadith than she did. It's true. Abu Huraira, nothing busy did, even not hunger, nothing. But Aisha, she was busy, but she wasn't busy enough not to participate. She's from the top 5 narrators, right? Here we go. Let's get to the real bottom of it. How did Aisha do it? How does she actually learn? Here we go. These are the real benefits as scholars they mentioned about her biography, that she had unique skill sets that allowed her to learn despite her situations. Number 1, she had a very good memory. Aisha would memorize everything she heard from Messenger Sallallahu, the Quran and the Hadith. So she memorized the whole Quran. Suyuti mentions in Kitab al-Itqan. She's a hafiz in the Quran. Her and Hafsa both memorized it. Remember, Aisha doesn't learn like the way that maybe the others learned, like paper and pen. She would narrate, but hear and memorize. So she learned the Quran from her husband, and she narrates in total 2,210 hadith, as Imam al-Dhahabi in Sir Alam al-Bala narrates. It's for those reasons, because she memorized so much, and she was keen to do it. Abu Musa said, never was a hadith unclear to us, the companions of the Messenger ﷺ, to which we asked Aisha, except that we found that she had some knowledge concerning it. Sahih at-Tirmidhi. So Aisha's memory was so good, but she was keen to memorize whatever she heard. Now that's the first benefit that we should take. If you want to be knowledgeable, you want to benefit from your knowledge, commit to memory, whatever studies you're doing. Now, how do you do that? How can I memorize better? That's another, maybe a presentation another time. How do you memorize? How do you recall information? But the fact that Aisha was keen to do so means that whenever the Prophet Muhammad said something at home, or she heard with him when she was while traveling, or an incident happened, an episode, an incident, she would memorize it. So when I say memorize, I'm not talking about just verbatim only. She also memorized events. So, for example, at Ifk, the whole story about what happened to her during the fabrication of the lie against her, she narrates, she herself narrates the story of what happened to her, the details. Also, for example, what happens regarding Salah or the Tayammum story. So she narrates episodes. So the reason I'm saying this is that if someone is a student of knowledge, you have to try your best to commit to memory things that you learn and you hear. Why? So you can preserve the knowledge, but also that is what it means to be knowledgeable, that you know like things that happen, right? And so a lot of us, we may say, okay, so what does that mean for me and you? Well, try your best whenever you're studying that you memorize and review what you're learning. Try to commit it to memory however you can do it. And that doesn't mean always verbatim. It could also just mean that you know the narration in general. So that's the first one. Aisha's memory is fantastic. Number 2, right? Sorry, before continuing. How good was her memory? Look at this. She even memorized medicine or medical treatments. This is the one that really is amazing, because Aisha was a master in Quran, Sunnah, Arabic language, and medicine, right? And the poetry as well. Look at this narration. It really gives us encouragement. Urwa bin Zubair says, again, he's the nephew. He says, "O mother," I said to Aisha, "O mother, I'm not amazed by your understanding, because you are the wife of the Messenger ﷺ, and the daughter of Bakr Siddiq, after all. I'm not amazed by your knowledge of poetry, and who is, when you are daughter of Bakr, who's the most knowledgeable people, or from the most knowledgeable people. However, I'm amazed by your knowledge of medicine. How do you get it?" She said, she lightly struck my shoulder and said, "Oh, Urayya," which is the diminutive form for Urwa. Very, the Messenger of Allah became sick at the end of his life, and delegations of Arab would come to him from every place, and they would describe for him prescribed medication, and I used to prepare for him. So that is how I learned it. Muslim Ahmed and Sheikh Shu'aib al-Arnaud says Sahih. Look at this. The medicine that she used to prepare for the Prophet Muhammad, she memorized it. And later, when people used to come to her, she'd tell them how to cure them from that medication. This is the kind of attention to details that all of us can do. And no one could say today, I can't memorize anything. No, if it's ilm related, you heard it, it's narrated to you, memorize it, either specifically or in general, and then review it. And this is a beautiful benefit that when sisters are learning, whatever learning they're doing, try your best to write down, to organize, to commit to memory, however you can, whatever you're learning, because that's going to make you knowledgeable. Because later on, you could recall, hey, I studied this, I heard this. And sometimes knowledge is such that you don't even know where you heard it exactly, but you know the benefit. So always try to be keen on what you're hearing. Aisha was so keen. And this is very important because she did not have classroom learning. Okay, sister, she's not like me and you who are sitting in class with paper and pen. No, Aisha never learned like that. She learns through narration, she learns through events, and she becomes what? The greatest scholar, amongst the greatest scholars in the history of Islam. So I'm saying this because we need to move from that model. I'll show you later how we can do it. Number two, and probably the most interesting of all of it, besides her good memory, she used to ask a lot of questions to the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu a lot. Ibn Abi Mulaika says, rahimahullah, whenever Aisha anha heard anything which she did not understand, she used to ask again until she understood it completely. Allahu Akbar. See, when we look at this practical angle now it's making sense. Look at them now in the hadith. She asked Rasulullah one day, he narrated to her, Prophet said, whoever will be called to account for his deeds in the day of judgment will surely be punished. So Aisha said, doesn't Allah say he surely will receive easy reckoning? Doesn't Allah say that about the people? So he says, Rasulullah said, this means that only the presentation that counts, but whoever will be argued about their account will be ruined. So what happened here? Aisha heard a hadith. She has an ayah in her mind. She memorized. So she's saying that Allah's Messenger told her a hadith, but Allah said in the Quran that the believer will have an easy account. So how do you combine between the two? So our Prophet Muhammad said is that the person he's talking about is one whose account is going to be investigated in detail, not the person whose account will be easy in presenting. Hafiz ibn Hajar rahimahullah, look what he writes. He said in the hadith, the benefit that Aisha anha was eager in understanding the meaning of hadith. And the Prophet Muhammad did not get tired in reviewing or repeating knowledge. You see, Aisha never just settled with, oh, I know the ayah, I learned the hadith, and if the hadith doesn't go with the ayah, forget it. No, I need to know what is the meaning. She asked to repeat or to explain to see clarification. Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen, in his commentary of Sahih Bukhari, he said this is the benefit. If you hear something and you don't understand, you ask. And don't be shy. Some people say, I'm too shy to ask someone to repeat it. He said, no, you ask to repeat. So why is this important? If you and I want to become knowledgeable people, students of knowledge, we need to ask a lot of questions. And good questions are what made Abdul ibn Abbas a scholar too. Ibn Abbas, how did he become a scholar? He asked a lot of questions. You see, this is a secret. And that's why you need to have a teacher or a program, and you ask, right? You don't be shy to ask. Especially, as you can see, Aisha's question is the Quran and Hadith. She's trying to figure out how to combine them. Today, you may find that someone listens to a lecture, read something in a book, and they never saw clarification. How could you gain knowledge if you're just going to pass over it? You have to ask. So that's very important, a very cool benefit to know, because it gives every one of us a chance. Who cannot ask questions? Who's eager? And that means you have to ask questions about what you're learning, and don't be shy to ask. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was not shy or bothered to answer them again and again and again. Third, Aisha, she had good understanding. We already took that from Hayda Urwa. Her faham of things were good. So generally her understanding was good, but what made her knowledge more is she asked questions whenever something didn't sit with her understanding. And the next one, the fourth one, is she taught others the knowledge she learned to spread it. You see, this is the one, sisters, if someone does, once they learn, then you will see the knowledge will increase. You need to teach and spread. If you learn something, you have to teach others. You're not allowed just to learn yourself and not teach others. Aisha, she taught so many students, and she has male and female scholars who are her students. And I'm going to mention the female ones because it's a sisters program. Number one, Amra bint Abdurrahman al-Ansariya, 106 Hijri. She narrates in Bukhari and Muslim. She's a narrator of hadith. Alima, one of the greatest scholars. Aisha bin Talha, another scholar, right, 110 Hijri. Mu'adha al-Adawiyya, another scholar, 83 Hijri. All of them studied with Aisha. Perhaps most notably is Amra, because she used to live in the Actual Hujjah, she used to spend excessive time inside Aisha's chamber, her house, and she used to learn all these different narrations from Aisha. These are scholars who learn, but why is it important to learn and teach? If you want to learn, you got to teach. If you don't teach, you won't learn that much, and you won't preserve your knowledge. You won't be encouraged to continue to learn. You keep your knowledge. Scholars they say there's a secret behind the reason why there's only so few teachers and so many students. And some of them say it's because some of those who learn don't teach, so they end up forgetting. Right? Abu Ishaq al-Ibili, what did he write in his Ta'iyah? يزيد بكثرة الإنفاق منه وينقص عن به كفا إن شددت. I think it's supposed to say وينقص به إن كفا إن شددت. Right? I don't know if that's wording exactly correct here. Or maybe it is وينقص عن به كفا إن شددت. So knowledge increases when it's spent abundantly and increases when you withhold from spending. So somebody today learned something and then they didn't teach. I think tomorrow your knowledge is going to stay. If you don't teach somebody, what's going to give you the encouragement to continue to review it? But the fact that Aisha used to teach so excessively, she also will allow her knowledge to become blessed. And that's the difference between having knowledge and having knowledge which benefits you after you stay or after you pass away. Aisha would even go out of her way to show physical demonstrations of what she learned. One day she went, yes, correct. Yeah, it's correct. So Aisha, one day, Hadith Muslim, she went and she showed them, I think it's Muslim, how to make wudu. No, actually not Muslim. Sorry, the Sunan Sunan Nasa, I believe it is. She showed them how to make wudu. So because she learned, right? So she showed them physically how to do it. So this is the benefit that we can take, that she was very, very giving. And this is what this calls zakatul ilm. You see, if you want to become more knowledgeable, you learn, you teach, you learn, you teach. But if you stop learning, then you're not going to be able to continue to benefit. If you stop teaching, you'll also not be encouraged to review what you have. So here we learn, before continuing, 4 benefits to how Aisha anha, the skill set that she had that got her where she was. Good memory, and the key is to memorize. Lots of questioning and being curious and inquisitive to get that clarification for things that didn't make sense to her. She had good understanding of the deen in general, right? Obviously, because she has good teachers. That's another thing. Her father and her Prophet Muhammad, her husband. And lastly, she taught others what she learned and she spread it. So these are practical things of her biography. Despite her business as a wife, she was able to become so knowledgeable. Now, let us think about, and here's a summary of what I just said. Good memory, when you get us to memorize, right? Asking lots of questions on knowledge you learned, good understanding of knowledge you learned, teaching others what you learned. If me and you take on these qualities and skill sets, we can actually become knowledgeable too. Inshallah ta'ala, despite your schedule, despite your business. Because have you noticed all of these are skill sets? They're not to do with circumstantial things. Some people think that knowledge is only there for people who have, the environment. If you're in Medina, you're in Mecca, you're in Yemen, you're in Egypt, it's not like knowledge is going to come download into your head, right? You have to study. But what's happened today is people are forgetting that ultimately, wherever you are, if you have the skill set of a student of knowledge, you're making the right efforts with a good intention, dua to Allah, and seeking His aid, you can learn. And your responsibilities will not be a hindrance to your ability to learn. Let's complete today's lesson, inshallah, lecture, with some actionable. Right now, we're going to get a little more practical. Now that we have the inspiration from the great pious predecessors, let's get some actionable items, inshallah. Then after that, we'll take the questions. So practical tips, because there's no point of not being able to take it back home or start today. Number 1, why this is again what we can do if you really want to be able to balance your schedule when you're learning. Number 1, you got to make dua to Allah. You got to ask Allah. Du'ahu al-ibadah. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala all the time to give you knowledge, to help you balance, and try your best to ask Him, because Allah is the one who's Al-Alim, the most knowledgeable. So ask Him. It's very important, because we're Muslims. We depend on Allah for everything. Number 2, renew your intentions. Make sure your intentions for seeking knowledge and doing what you're doing is for Allah's sake. You don't want to be learning for the wrong reasons, because ultimately, if you're trying to organize your life for Allah's sake, make sure you have a niyyah. And that will also give you the reward for whenever you're doing what you're doing for your family. You get hasanat. So intentions are important. Sometimes it's all about the intention. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can make someone's success based on the fact that the intention was so sincere. Perhaps a small deed, تعذبه نية, a niyyah will make it great. Number 3, make a scheduling routine. We already learned that. So literally, you have to have one. If you don't already have one, make one. Make a schedule. If you want to make it online, you want to make it on paper, make a schedule. Find out when are you free. Some of the scholars, they recommend studying after Fajr. Some say after Isha. Some say it depends on you. So find out what's your downtime. When are you free? When are you not doing anything? And use that to study. And stick to it to the best of your schedule ability. Whenever your schedule gets out of order, don't be sad. Just make sure you compensate for it another time. If you have a doctor's appointment or some other responsibility or issue that came up, no problem. What was supposed to be done in the morning, we're done in the evening. What is supposed to be done today should not be delayed to tomorrow. That's the key. You're not gonna say, "Oh, I'm so busy today, I couldn't do it." And if you couldn't do all of it, you do a little bit. In أحب الأعمال الله أدومها وإن قل. Little goes a far way. But what happens sometimes when you lose your schedule by giving yourself too much leeway? Today's lesson will not disappear. If you're gonna do it tomorrow, it has to be 2 lessons. All right, today's and tomorrow's. But the reality is, try your best to find a schedule that's most conducive to your life. Number 4, find a teacher or sister's class. You need to have someone who can help you learn, to teach you, first of all, and the sisters in a class who are like-minded, inshallah, right? So many sisters here right now who can help one another and motivate them. When you're feeling lazy and tired, you don't want to learn, you want to just spend your time on social media. No, you need somebody to check in, accountability, review sessions, etc. And Aisha anha is not coincidental. She's the most knowledgeable. When her father, Abu Bakr Siddiq, is the most knowledgeable Sahabi, and her husband is the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? So that's another key, to have a teacher who can keep you in check, to also allow you to know, what should I study, etc., etc. Now let's talk about number 5, making lots of adhkar throughout the day and night to get the blessings in your time to begin with. We already spoke about blessings. And one of the secrets is that if you ask Allah, if you remember Allah, Allah will make your daily task easy. Some sisters want to know, how can I do all my work faster so I can have more time to study? Remember Allah. You want the proof? Hadith Ali and Fatima. Who remembers that hadith? I think we all do. When Fatima asked Rasulullah for a maid to help her with the cooking and to help her to grind the mill, he gave her what? Tasbih. He says, Subhanallah 33 times a night. Alhamdulillah 33 times. Allahu Akbar 34 times. That's better for you than a maid. What was the benefit behind that hadith? The scholars say, like Hafiz ibn Hajar, whoever at nighttime says that 33 times, Alhamdulillah, Subhanallah, 30 times, Alhamdulillah, 34 times, Allahu Akbar, that will make your tomorrow's task easy. Allahu Akbar, tomorrow's task easy. You'll be able to get everything done faster. Because Fatima anha was asking for a maid. He gave her dua to make your life easier. It's very, very important to be this mindset. Some scholars say if you read the Quran lots in the day, throughout the day, you get more things done. So, for example, when you're cooking, you read the Quran, you're reviewing the Quran, fast, you get everything done fast, and also with barakah. Number 6, use your downtime to review and listen to knowledge. Downtime is the time when you're not doing anything, or when you're doing what's called low cognitive demand tasks. Like when you're cooking, or sisters are breastfeeding their child, or they're cleaning their house, or she's waiting for the dryer, the clothes to dry. What are you doing? Most of us pull out our phone and we're just scrolling, zombie scrolling. Put that phone down, or if you want to use it, open your app for the Quran, open your hadith, open a lecture, play it, listen, review. This is why when most of the people, they fall short. The scholars, you should see how they are. If you ever spend time with a scholar, every minute he's doing something. And you look at them like their downtime is still learning, and their high time is high power learning. So when they study, and when they're downtime, they're still benefiting. Look what Abdul Abbas said. This is a salaf how they used to do it. He said, what prevents any one of you when he returns back to his family from the market or from filling a need, from reciting the Quran, so that he can earn 10 good deeds for every letter. Ibn Abdul Barak Kitab Zuhd, Isnad is Jayyid. Ibn Abbas is saying, when you finish your task, you went to shopping, you had something to do, you come back, okay, you have a little break right now, get the mushaf, get the lecture. So many times, sisters may notice that during the early days when they're busy with their children, especially the early days of their development, there's so much time the children have. But sometimes you notice that the children are also sleeping or they're doing tasks. You can also benefit. And when they get older, school age, and they're off to school, you have a lot more time. Or they're homeschooling, they're busy, you have more time. But downtime is the secret to more success. And I'm saying this because there was one study that was done recently, I think in the UK or it was US, one of the two, and they asked about 2,000 so mothers, how much time do you think you have per day to yourself? And some of the mothers said 17 minutes. SubhanAllah. Some of them said we only have 17 minutes per day to ourselves. Now, someone will be like, okay, let's be honest, 17 minutes. I think we have a little more time than that. But even if someone said that's all you got, 17 minutes, you can listen to something. You could benefit from a small lecture in 17 minutes. But what happens when you have the 17 minutes? Because our minds are so fatigued, like our mood, our ambition is not the best. We just do nothing, right? We just sit down and just do nothing. So try your best to use some of your downtime to help you. This is why you see some people, they learn like this. Um, okay, let's move now to this part. Ask your husband for help. Again, Shaykh Muqbil, he didn't say that, rahimahullah. So if you're married, you have to talk to your husband and say, okay, I want to learn knowledge. Can you help me? I need more time for myself. Can you take the kids one time when I have a class? Or if they're older, can you take them out and let me have some time to do some Quran, some hadith, some review? You see, sometimes we forget asking your husband for help. That's his job to teach you too, right? So the sister should also raise the bar that he needs to teach you, but also make time, work together. We have to work together. And what you can do is you can create a schedule where, sometimes like maybe once a week or twice a week, whatever it is, that you have time for your gatherings or more extra time where he'll take care of his kids. Again, the scholars, they used to do that for their wives. And I'll give you one story. Shaykh ibn Uthaymeen, rahimahullah, his wife was not a scholar. She's a regular woman. She didn't even know how to read and write, subhanAllah. But when she got older, as I mentioned by herself, she said when the children got older, Shaykh Uthaymeen used to take her all the way to the women's learning center so she can learn how to write. SubhanAllah, imagine like Shaykh Uthaymeen, he didn't forget her, right? Imagine she's so busy. She met herself. That's all she would do to make his life easy, but he never forgot. Makes time for her too, so she can learn. So this is a great encouragement for us to think about, right? Togetherness. Number 8, and this is one I think it's a key. Embrace mobile learning. We need to move away from the idea that a dars is only in the class, notebook and pen presentation like I'm doing today. No, you can learn in the car when you're on the highway. You're going to visit family, in-laws. When you're shopping, you have headphones. You put your earbuds on. Knowledge is on the go. Nabi Sallallahu taught Sahaba so many ways. How did he teach Abdul Abbas about Qaadir? He's teaching on the back of a donkey. Mu'adh bin Jabal teaching Tawheed, same thing. Sahaba, everywhere he's teaching. So the Sahaba learning on the move. And I'm saying this because many of us, we don't use our on-the-go time to learn. Some of us, we use our on-go time to learn. Some of us maybe just, like, I mean, I'm sure you see people walking outside, not doing anything with, when they're walking. Do tasbih, do some adhkar. So here's a beautiful benefit. The Sahaba used to do that. Abu Huraira, Abu Burda narrates, when Mu'adh and Abu Musa met in Yemen, as they're both leaders of Yemen, he asked him, Mu'adh asked Abu Musa, how do you recite the Quran? Abu Musa said, I recite it while I'm standing, sitting, riding animals at intervals and piecemeal. This is the precedence for when you go in your car, you put on your Bluetooth Quran right there. Either you read Allah to yourself, or you play, and sometimes with your husband, you guys review each other. You see, most people, you look now at this point, if someone said this, Sahaba used to do that on the riding animal. There's no, this is low tech, right? They're just riding the animal. We have a high technology. And what do we have? Either we have the radio on, which is useless. There's some people, subhanAllah, they benefit all the time from learning online. Truck drivers and other people who drive long distance. A story quickly. Shaykh ibn Uthaymeen, one of his students, he used to be a driver for him. He said, I remember whenever I used to travel with Shaykh ibn Uthaymeen, as soon as we got in the car, you know what he did? He pulled out the tape of Shaykh al-Albani. Shaykh ibn Uthaymeen, he pulled out the tape of Shaykh al-Albani, puts it inside the cassette player, and we travel, listen to Shaykh al-Albani's Silsila Huda wan Nur. Allahu Akbar. Al-Albani, Ibn Uthaymeen is studying with Al-Albani, because again, Al-Albani, he never met Al-Albani that much, only a few times. He studied already with Ibn Baz. Look at that. If Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen doesn't waste his time, that's for me and you. We can do it. We can do it. And the last one I want to mention, teach your children. If you have children, teach your children. Share with your husband. You learn the hadith, learn the lecture, share it. Because we said sharing the knowledge, zakatu ilm, keeps the knowledge with you. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he taught his stepson, Umar bin Abi Salama, when they're eating. Ya ghulam, he's eating. Samillah, وكل بيمينك وكل مما يليك متفق عليه. He's telling his stepson, he's using the time to teach. Sometimes you learn something and you tell your child he's too young to know it. He just narrate it anyways. Why'd you narrate to them? Because you want them, first of all, to benefit, hopefully one day, but also you want to review it to yourself. And what's better than a husband and wife who share knowledge they learned? What's better than that? What kind of relationship stronger than that? So Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he used to use opportunities like that to teach. He's always using it. So at home, you know, you learn something. Today's lecture, hey, instead of we talk about sometimes we talk about different things. Sometimes we have time. Hey, can you listen to something? I reviewed this page of the Quran. You want to listen to it? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq. Right? Inshallah, I will end with this much. And before finishing, I want to encourage the sisters, especially those of us who are here in Toronto, to join us. Yeah, and the sisters, mashallah, have been doing a lot of work the last couple of years. We have a program here we're studying every Tuesdays. We have classes going on, a whole host of things. So connect with Toronto Dawah sisters, especially those who are in Toronto. Get involved in this because this is our opportunity to benefit. So I highly encourage that. These are 1 month off lectures. We have a regular program going. So inshallah, if you want more details about that, you can talk with the sisters who are here from that program. And inshallah, for those who are outside of it, I encourage them to, inshallah ta'ala, to connect with their local communities, find these classes and programs. We need to be part of it, alhamdulillah, because there are so much that needs to be done. Right. So there is posted in the chat, inshallah ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to benefit from this. I'm going to stop the recording now and then take any other questions that have come our way, bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. سبحانك بحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك